Hello, welcome again if you are people who have been following me, and welcome and hello if you're new to my channel. I'm Marion and today I'm doing a final session on this lovely piece of crewel work in my 2024 stitch journal, and it's come out really pretty. However, it was quite a lot of work. There was quite a few hours of stitching that I've had to condense down, and so the video is a little longer than I'm being normally posting, and that was just because there was a lot to get in. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you up on any news at the end. Before I start the last week on this lovely crewel work page, I thought you'd like to see how I did my box out. So a few weeks ago, or it might be more than a few weeks, I managed to get this old cutlery box from a shop in Barnard Castle, and it still had the old felted wooden bits in where your knives and forks would stay. Well, I got round to it last week. I've actually done it out for my crewel wools, and there they are, all sorted out. That's better, isn't it? All sorted out. There's not a tutorial for it because I've already done that. I'll put a link into the video where I did my original embroidery threads box, which is the same type of box. Put everything together. So there's the vintage Penelope, the Appletons, and I've also got the Eco Vita in here now. And I think I'm happy with the way it is. And the only thing I couldn't get stored properly was the really old, these ones here, which are my great grandma's vintage crewel threads, the really fine stuff. So these date from sort of the 1920s or 30s. I didn't actually realise I had quite that amount of them, but I did. And so in the end, I've put an elastic, a piece of elastic stretched across with a little screw in, and there's a piece of elastic here, and I've just hung them up, and that one there was just to keep them flopping over when I closed the lid, and that is working really well. So that's another bit of a tip for anybody who's trying to store things in this type of a box, is you can do that type of thing. So I'm pleased I didn't take the box apart like I was going to, but my crewel wools were just all in a big bag, in a big mess, and now they're sorted. And I mean, who wouldn't be inspired by opening that up and starting to stitch? And with that, I'm going to get myself set up in the hoop, ready for the final week on the crewel embroidery. I know I've done long and short on the pansy on the previous page. Crewel wool is the absolute perfect thing to be doing this type of shading with, and I'm actually breaking with what I normally do because I've got all my wool sorted out, and I'm going to use these three very similar shades of the Eco Vita, and that's just because I really haven't used it very much yet, so I'm going to try it out. And so I've got a darkish green, a mid green, and a pale, quite a lichen colour green, which I really like. Use your own colours, and definitely I could do them in purple if I wanted. If I could do a purple leaf or a red leaf or autumn colours, I could match it up with this one down here that's more autumn colours. But I've decided to go with that for now. I would go straight in with my outside, but I'm just going to explain again, and for anybody who hasn't seen my other silk shading or thread painting tutorial, I've just drawn in the central vein for the oak leaf, and it's important that my stitches are going to go in the correct direction. So we're going to go with the way a leaf goes, and I'll just mark in the veins, how the veins of the leaf would actually look. They'd sort of look like that. They'd be going up there like that, coming down, they'd go out to each lobe. So I can mark that in, and I'm just marking it in with a soft pencil so you can see it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'll put a length of thread in my needle, because you start from the outside edge and move inwards. So I'll get my first colour, the dark colour, into my crewel needle. So I've got a long eye. It's not a very particularly long needle, but it does have a sharp point. And I'm going to start from the middle. So quite often I start in the middle of a piece of work, or in the middle of your pattern, because it tends to be easier to work each side outwards to keep even, rather than starting here and working round. That's just the way I like to work, and it works for me, and I think it works for a lot of people to just start in the middle. And long and short, you definitely, I've sort of got to get out of the habit of thinking that it's a long stitch and a short stitch. It's more that it's stitches of different lengths. The longs can be anywhere from double the short stitches to triple, and the short stitches can be tiny up to nearly as long as the long stitches. So it's just a matter of stitches of different lengths. Every stitch you lay next to each other is going to be a different length from the one before, whether that's shorter or longer, it doesn't matter. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm still going to lie in a framework. So when you're laying in satin stitch or long and short stitch, quite often what can happen is you get focused on the stitch you've already laid down and you keep laying them straight, and then all of a sudden your stitch line has wandered off where you want it to be. And so I feel that if you put a framework in, it helps, because then you're focusing on just one stitch at a time. I'm not focused on what this has done or that's done. I can put this stitch in as I want it to be, and I'm looking at where I've drawn these veins. I can lie it in and think, oh yes, that's perfect there, and I can just put my needle down. And I haven't been swayed by looking at the stitch that was there before. So as I go around my framework, I can still do short ones if I want, or long ones if I want. So I'm just going to go down this whole piece, aware that I am going to lay in 2 other colours as well, and I'll work right down to the bottom, and I'm just following my drawn lines, or following, if you don't need the drawn lines, you're just following the shape and the way of the stitches that you want to get. Just think you're trying to be the leaf. You're thinking, how is the leaf growing? Where do these stitches need to be to look like a leaf that would be when it was alive? You need the stitches to mimic the way the growth lines on the leaf are. And so that's what I'm doing by laying my framework in. And you can see I've already, look how different an angle I've got here to where I started. But I haven't had to follow any stitch. I'm just following where I know the stitches have to be. I'm going to get right down to the bottom. I'll start and angle them down towards the heel of the leaf, because that's going to look nice. And I'll just put a couple of stitches in here at the bottom, just to get that connected with the stem. This is pulling through really nicely actually. And now I can work back up through my framework and fill in the long and short. So I'll go short here, and you just want to be a thread's width away. You don't want to be crowding stitches, but you don't want gaps either. I'm going to go, that went shorter, this is going shorter again, because I know I want 2 more colours on here. I'm going to get 1 stitch in there, I think, and I'll take it a bit longer. None of these outer stitches are going to fit right down to the spine of the leaf, but they need to be long enough that you can work into them with the next colour. You don't want stitches to be just coming to where that is. It needs to work up into it for the smoothest transition. So that stitch is going shorter, this stitch is going to be longer, and then I've got 2 long ones together there now, so I'll make sure this is a shorter one. So you can just decide on every stitch how long it's going to be, but because you're now working between 2 stitches of a framework, it becomes more obvious what the direction is going to be. It's not going to be that direction, it's going to be somewhere between there. And that just takes the guesswork out of putting your stitches down, I think. And as you get more experience at doing it, you won't need a framework, but it is really helpful when you're starting out, because I think that's what I hear mostly, that people don't know how to get the stitches in the right direction. Or I can remember years ago when my stitches would all sort of start slanting off one way or another, and it was because I was following each stitch as I put it down, and you forget to angle them round, or you don't realise how you can angle them round. And that's why I came up with putting the framework in the first place. And it works. I have to say that this is stitching up really beautifully. It's smoother than the older threads. It's definitely smoother than the Appletons, I feel. It's the first time I've bought new crewel wools for years, because the Appletons, I bought them when I was stitching the doll's house carpets. And actually I have one that's half stitched. I should get it out and finish it. And I don't have those wools in this box because I was always frightened I would run out before I finished it, so I try not to go to use them. So I do have more Appletons, which I've just realised I might find difficult to fit in the box. But I have to finish the doll's house carpet first. So you can see how this is just going in nicely. There's a short stitch and another short stitch. You don't have to just go long, short, long, short. You can do a very long one if you want. It's all fine. It all helps to shade everything up. I've got room for one more stitch here, and I can go very short there. I could go longer here. I think I'm going to go a bit short, but not by very much. And you can see that my stitches are just easily changing direction as I'm working between the two framework stitches. The framework stitches are keeping my angles right. I'm changing things round in here. I'm not changing, there's no big furniture changed round, but I got into like I don't know, I was changing stuff around. It's because it's been the anniversary for Michael, and I just struggle with the whole thing. It doesn't seem right that I'm older than him now. It seems such a trivial thing to say. But the fact that I'm 65 and he passed away when he was 64 is just, I don't know. Doesn't seem like that should be allowed. And I know that sounds daft, but there it is. So that's why there was no video on Friday, because I was busy just, you know, pulling things apart and painting things in here and just tidying everything up and keeping busy and doing something else. Just doing things. So when I'm all finished with all my changing around, I'll do a little tour again, because although the furniture hasn't changed, it looks a bit different. I haven't even decorated, but it's just, there's different things on the shelves, there's different things all over. I've painted the chest of drawers. I've hung up the raven. All sorts of things like that that's altered. Right, I've worked all my way up, and so I was just about to carry on, but I'll put the framework in again. So here I am working down the other side, framework in, and then I'll change colours and I'll fill in one side first. I'm back with this middle colour, and I've got a nice decent length off. I'm going to come up within the green that I've just laid down, and I'm going to start and take the stitches further down towards the middle. Now I'm aware that I do want a very pale colour, so I don't have to go right down to the middle, but I'm going to have to sometimes, because otherwise there's nowhere for me to shade the middle into. And now I'm going to work up and down. I don't necessarily want to work every stitch down from the top, but I come up within the green and take the stitch down following sort of the lines I've already laid down. And again, the stitch can be whatever length you think it needs to be. You're just lengthening these and taking them down. I can see a little gap there, so I'm going to take a stitch quite long, and then I'm going to come back up just above, that's it, and take a stitch back up into the green. And each time I can still see I've got a gap there, so I'm going to fill that in. I'll go right up into the green here, the dark green, and take a shorter stitch down. And there will be less stitches on this row round because you've got a smaller amount to fill in. Obviously the perimeter has the most amount of stitches. Now some stitches will fill in more than 2 sort of pathways, and that's perfectly fine. As long as some of this middle is going to go down to the, nearly to the middle rib, it'll all shade in nicely. And I'll come up there, but what I'm not doing at all is coming up into the same hole as any of my previous stitches. I'm always splitting the stitches that I've already put down. So that's right down to the middle there. Okay. So I'm always coming up within the stitches. I'm not, take that down to the middle as well. I'm not coming up alongside. I definitely split the stitch that I'm shading down from. And just working back and forward to get the stitches where you want. And there's quite a short one in here, so I'm actually going to come right up into there like that, because there's another stitch here, but I don't think that needs one. I think this one will go right the way in, so I can sort of still audition them if I want, check where you're going with it, and that looks perfectly fine to me. And yes, definitely you still have the chance, you still have the choice to audition your thread if you need to. And you do get into a lovely rhythm of laying the stitches in, and you'll instinctively start to just realise exactly where your needle needs to go to. And look, that stitch is actually not very long at all because I've kept it short of the other one. It actually doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on it, just go with the flow. And creating something, it's okay for it to be however it ends up. It's something you've made. That's shading beautifully. And because I always try and use up what I've got in my needle, wherever possible. And I've got the edge here, I'm just going to shade up into this bit, and it probably will use up what's here. All the light one's in, I'll start at the top yet again. And so the only thing I really have to concern myself with now is that I finish my stitches on the middle rib. And I'm hoping this is just going to look beautiful now. I'll go back up, I'll do another one down towards the middle. So every stitch of this colour is going to finish at the middle. Just being aware of where every stitch starts from. It can go right past into the dark even, it doesn't matter. It'll bring liveliness to your stitching. So the advantage of working in the hoop is that you're able to use both your hands to help you stitch. And I'm not ambidextrous by any manner of means, but my hand can hook the thread and I can definitely find to put the needle down if I was stitching with one hand on top and bottom. I'll show you that now. I'm working up and down. Your dominant hand is the one that can feel where your next stitch needs to be. I can't do that with my right hand at all, but the right hand can take the needle and it can find where to go downwards, and so you work up and down, and it just saves your other hand having to keep doing that. You're just waiting for the needle to be passed to you. And it is a nice way to work. I didn't look at the camera to see if I'm blocking anything. I forget to look sometimes. I think it's all right actually. So yes, I've been changing stuff around a bit, doing a bit of a, I don't know, tidy up. What it's made me realise is I'm really behind on my sewing projects as opposed to embroidery things and stuff like that. I've got so many thrifted clothes, there's nowhere to put them, and they all need cutting up and making into something. So I expect a couple of sewing type of tutorials coming on a Sunday as I start and work through some of them. I'm hoping to have a nice, interesting one on Sunday of this week. That's if I can get around to doing it. Definitely haven't been getting as much done. My brain just goes off on autopilot and I find myself just standing doing nothing. Okay, so that looks lovely. That's gone in there very nicely indeed. There's not a much colour variation there, but it's enough for me. All of that is looking really lovely. I've really enjoyed using those threads, which is great. Now I need to go up with a central vein. I'm actually going to do it with blue because it's in the style of the work to use a different colour. So I am going to start right up at the top, and I'm going to echo. I'll angle you down a bit more, I'll take you out. I'm going to echo the fly stitches here, but I'm going to make a mid-rib at the same time. I'll come up on that side, down on the other, just working over the top of your stitches. You don't have to be thinking about it too much. Make a nice deep V of a fly stitch. It's going to look really nice. I'll take a long stalk down. I think I want it to be a bit longer again, so I'm going to just split that stitch and take it down again. Actually, I think this is 4-ply knitting wool, you know. I don't think it's actually Crewel wool. I'll come up and put another fly stitch in. Go quite long. I need one here going out to these lobes. This is quite a big fly stitch. Just angling it right up as if it's going out to the very tips. Another, don't want to make the stitches too huge, so I'll do another split stitch to get myself down further. Just do about there. And a last fly stitch going out to these bottom lobes of the leaf. They don't have to be equal, they can be excuse me, there can be different places, different lengths. Come up at the bottom to finish that off. Oh, that looks lovely. Filling the last acorn, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do actually. So I have started it because I was thinking, what am I going to do? And then I realised I'd been sitting there blankly doing nothing. So I do what I've told you to do before. Just put your needle in and see what happens. Anyway, the needle has gone in with some of the very old Crewel wool, this colour. Nice soft sort of a green that's hinting on the bluish side, especially when you see it next to them. And I've done a stem stitch outline, and I am just going to fill it in with plain satin stitch. Up at the top, my right hand's taking the needle and sending it back down to my left hand underneath. And I've got the thread doubled up in my needle so that I can do it. Weave underneath to finish off. And I think I am going to go for the French knot. I really like them. I think the French knot cap works very well for me. Yep, I am. Tie 2 wraps. Oh, look at that, beautiful. 2 wrap French knot. And go all around the outside and then just fill it in. Remembering all the time to make the knot at the fabric. Once, twice, needle down, knot to the fabric, hold on, pull through, don't let go till you're nearly all the way there. Onto the final flower. And I'm actually going to do this little piece first because I want to do some laid work, but I need the edge to be done after it. So although I'd normally work from the back to the front, I'm actually going to put this little piece in first. Now on laid work, you're nearly always laying in your stitches first, and I'd be satin stitching this just like I did there, and then put the laid work on top. But I've come up with a thought, and I've gone and collected all of the ends out of my thread jar of what I've been using on this piece of embroidery. So not the ones, you know, where I can use them again, but all the short pieces, you know, that are not really useful for anything else. So I've taken them out of my thread jar. I'm just going to get them settled a bit. I think I don't want the dark ones in, so I'll take them out. And I'm going to use these for the laid part. So I think those very dark is definitely, I want them out. Do I want the red in? I like the colour, but it's a bit dark again. I think I'll take that out. I don't think I want the darkness. So I'm just going to get these threads nicely arranged in my fingers, and then I'm going to just try and sort of, you know, fiddle them about till I've got colours on the top that I quite like. And then I'm going to lay these down and couch over the top of them. But of course they won't be sewn through, they will just be couched. So I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to try it. That's quite nice actually, I like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay them in and see what they look like. I'm going to make a multicoloured middle. Maybe I'll take it bigger. I think I will. I'm going to take this piece bigger, like that. So alter your pattern if you want to do something. So I'm going to make a bigger piece of this. Now I'll cut these threads a bit level first, just to, you know, so I'll cut that bit off. So now I haven't got that raggy edge. They can definitely go in the thread jar. I'm not going to be using them in this. And yeah, I'm going to gather them up and lay them down. So I'm going to just cut the length that I need. And it won't be through the cloth. I'm not sure whether this is a good way or not, but so they're going back in the thread jar. But I'm experimenting, and that's okay. So experiment with this, or just lie your threads in as normal, that's fine. But the stitch I'm actually going to do here is, well, at the minimum it's 1,000 years old, because it's Bayeux Stitch. and Bayeux Stitch is the main embroidery stitch on the Bayeux Tapestry. It's actually just a type of couching, and you've already seen the actual couching stitch because I used it last week around the little flower island. This time I'm doing it properly. It's going to be on top of these couch threads. Well, it won't be properly, will it? Because I'm not stitching the threads properly. However, I'm going to do it and see what happens. So I am going to start right up here on the edge of the piece I'm filling in. You would have threads in here. I'm just going to put mine down. This is an experiment, and I'm going to stitch straight across. Oh no, I think that's a bit thick. Do you know what? I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered at all. And so on Bayeux Stitch, you put your horizontal, your line in, and you come back over it with the couching stitch. So I'm just going to come back up on the top, and I'm going to put a little slanting stitch in to couch that down. I'll put 2 stitches in this line. And the main thing is you do not want to make your couching stitches in any shape or form go in lines down, or else you'll split the stitches, split your threads, and you don't want your threads to look split at all. So when you do the next row of couching, you sort of interspersing. So get a piece of paper. So in essence, whatever your shape is, that's mine at the moment, you put your couching thread in and couch it down, and your next thread goes in. You don't want to be matching up those stitches like that, or else you'll bunch your threads. So each next couching goes in the middle, and then your next couching comes across and you go in the middle. So you sort of ended up making a bit of a diamond pattern with your little slanty stitches, but as long as they're not lined up, they can't be lined up. I don't know whether I've made that worse by saying that, but anyway, I've couched that. I'm coming back up for my next couching line, and I'm going to make it about 1 centimetre apart. So straight over to the other line. I'm going to spread my threads. I've got quite a lot here actually. Spread my threads, come back up and put the little slanting stitch, and definitely slant it, don't go straight across. You need to slant, and they all need to slant in the same direction. And mine are slanting to the left because I'm working towards the left. It doesn't matter at all which direction, as long as you keep them all going the same way, and they look better slanted than if you put them straight across. Whoops. So there's my second laid part in, and another. I'm just moving my threads so I can see the edge. And obviously if you'd laid in some satin stitch threads, then you wouldn't be having to move them like me. And so here I go, couch back along, making sure that my slanting stitches are in a different place to the ones before. Now if you're doing real Bayeux stitch, all of these threads would be absolutely like soldiers, lying horizontally or vertically aligned, and mine are going out and in. That's just because of the way I'm doing it. So I suppose it's not perfect, but I don't really mind. It's going to look different, and that's what I want. Okay, brought them back in a little bit because I was going a little bit outside where I wanted them to go. Definitely got more threads than you would if you'd laid it in as a satin stitch. I think this is going to be my last piece going across. Where's my line? Oops. I'm going to take some of this thickness off. Oh, I like the colours. just going to trim these threads off. So I'm just going to very carefully trim them into the shape of my piece of embroidery, and the edging stitch is going to keep all this down. That's the general idea. But considering I've never seen anybody do it before, and I haven't done it myself before, I don't really know. I'll just see what happens. So that's trimmed in nicely. And this edge needs to trim in. Oh, they're so packed tight, they're trimming up beautifully. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill these in with solid satin stitch and then do an open work piece here and then solid in the middle. So I shall start by, I'll just start by doing a couple of running stitches to start. And because it's satin stitch, I am going to lay in my framework again. And I'm not covering this line here because I know I'll be putting an edging stitch in there, so I'm just going to leave room for it by not stitching over that line. I'm stitching over my outer line because, as you know, they're pencil, but I'm not stitching the inner line just to leave room for that edging stitch. That's that done. I'm going to hop over to the other side and do the same on the other side. Just finished that. I still have the calyx to do. I'm back with some thrifted pink. Now, pink might seem a surprising choice, but I'm going to be edging this piece with this dark raspberry. It's the shade lighter than this here, and I think that goes with both the orange and the pink, and so I think it's going to look fine. And I'm going to do an open work, and so I'm going to just lay in a lovely trellis, and I'm going to lay it in straight on, so straight down from the top. And I think that's as far as I can go there. So I'll come back up to here and I'll skim straight across the point on a 90-degree angle. I can definitely put another one in there, and I'll work down this side first. And because this is already quite busy, because of the multicolours here, I'm actually going to couch these with the same colour and let it not be too busy in and of itself. While I'm laying these in, I should say to you that when I filled in the little island here, I have just used a zigzag stitch, but I did 2 rows of zigzag with each of 4 different colours, and it just looks pretty. I wasn't trying to be doing anything in particular, just thought, oh, I'll zigzag across. I kept thinking I was going to do French knots on it, and then I quite liked the way the zigzag was looking, so I did another row of it, and then I thought, oh, what if I just change colours every 2 rows, and that's what I did. So there's like a turquoise, a green, a pink and a green. In fact, this is the same pink. That's why I'm using it in a way, because I don't want to introduce another colour at this late stage. I'm going to put a cross, but I'm not going to do it in, I'm going to do it in this pink. see, do I want another colour in it or do I not? I'll have a look and see what it looks like. No, I think I want it just like that. So using the same colour, I want to put a little cross in each square. I'm making sure that the crosses go in the same direction at each time as well. So here I am on the very last piece of it then. I've filled in the calyx with this raspberry, just the same, this vintage Penelope, and I'm just going to take a tiny chain stitch up around both sides of this piece of laid work. So I'll do the outside edge first, and I do realise that on this part I haven't got much of the laid work showing, but I'm not about to redo anything, so it just has to be the way it is. I'm just not bothered about it enough, because it's just, you know, I'm taking that tight into that orange petal. I'm using my right hand to spread the loop. So that I've got a loop to come up with. I must admit, I really like all that laid work in one colour. I don't think I've done it in one colour before. I always do the couching stitches in a different colour, but it does look nice. More textural, I think. So these chain stitches are probably about 1/8 of an inch. Oh, I'll actually just finish that one off to the point, and it'll preserve the point nicely. So down to the bottom to work up again. So I want all the stitches to be lying in the same direction. I don't want my chain stitches to be pointing what is really, it's not the wrong way in a way, but it's the wrong way considering it'll be different from that side. So I need them to be the same. So it's best to just cut off and start from the bottom again and work your way back up to the point. I think the pink and orange are looking quite good there, because they both go with this dark raspberry. That's the point. And so that's providing a line for your eye to... Oh, what have I done there? I let go and I shouldn't have. It's providing a break for your eye so you don't perceive them as being next door to each other as colours. I'll go and get another, lengthen my needle, and I'll just complete some of this, and I'll come back as I'm putting the final stitch in. Just on my final way up here, it's actually not going to be my final stitches, because I've just realised that I still haven't, I need to get one more row of chain stitch on the tree trunk, and I think I'm going to do a little picture of Boo down here, little cat. Because quite often the Jacobean crewel work has fantastical animals. Quite often there are foxes or deer, there are owls and birds. I didn't plan one because I didn't feel I had enough space on this small embroidery to do one. I filled it all in with all the leaves and things. Thought I could have done one here somewhere instead of a flower. I could have swept that round and put a little owl on, but I didn't. I didn't, and I just thought, actually I've got room for a little cat on there, so I'm going to finish this bit on. I think I'm happy with that, and I'm really happy with all the thread ends. I sort of like it's a zero waste embroidery because I've even used the thread ends. So I'm going to do that extra little line, finish that cat, and I'll show you it right at the end. Well, I've loved every second of doing this piece of crewel work, and I'm just going to show you some highlights. I'm really pleased with the laid work there that I did with the thread ends, making my little piece of work zero waste because I've used the ends of the thread that would have been in my jar. I did a little portrait of Boo. She's just there looking quite tiny under the great big flower, but that's Jacobean crewel work for you. It doesn't have to make sense. And what else? Actually, I've loved every bit of it. I love this little pattern here. I've got a feeling you'll see that in something in the future because I just love that and I'd like to see that over a bigger area. Altogether, I've just enjoyed working on this, but I do enjoy working on them all. But it has seemed to have been quite popular with everyone, so thank you for that. I'm pleased that you've been enjoying it. And it's making a very colourful page, so that's the double page spread now of the book. And so onto a blank page next week. That's quite exciting. And 2 different ideas, and neither of which I've settled on yet. It's between doing something that will probably be quite popular and a bit easier, or taking some technique on a little bit further and doing something a bit more difficult that I think you'd enjoy. And I just don't know yet. Just depends what I fancy, I suppose. Hopefully I'll have a Friday video this week. I just couldn't manage to be doing it last week at all. So hopefully normal service will resume. There's so many projects to do, and yeah, I think there definitely will be some clothes coming up, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, because I've got something in particular for Sunday that I've been wanting to do for a while, and so I'm hoping to get that done by Sunday, or half done. It might be a 2-parter, so half done. And in the meantime, just thank you very much, and thank you for all your comments. I love to read them. I don't always catch up on them so quickly, but I read them all, and if you're supporting me over on Ko-fi too, I really do appreciate it. I just don't end up on there very much because I just end up like that piece of embroidery. It took me 6 hours, so that's yeah, the embroideries take so long really, so I end up not having enough time to do other things, and because of that I just end up not doing anything else. So I just hope you all enjoy it. That's the main thing. And I know I'm rambling now, so I'm just going to wind it up and say thank you and bye everyone. See you next time.